So you gotten around to see the UK facilities yet?
Yes, I actually just came from seeing a bunch of the facilities.
So
I know so many people. Holy cow.
What'd you think of them?
They're very nice. Definitely parts of the facilities. The weight room, I really like it. The locker room's really sweet. I was more referring to kind of the size of the stadium than what I was talking about. But yeah, they've really made a huge improvement to the stadiums. I think especially just to be able to show recruits that piece of it is a big deal and gives them a fighting chance.
Have you gotten a chance to talk to any fans yet? Have you gotten a feel for how excited UK fans are for this weekend?
I think so. I think that there's a really good vibe here, and people are really excited. And I think that, this is probably the most excited they've been in over a decade.
Definitely.
And I think there's real belief and there's real optimism. And I think the good thing for Kentucky fans, though, is it doesn't feel like it's just this year. Like in the past, it was like, oh, you're good for the first 5 games, but you haven't played anybody yet. Or in the past, it was like, you have a big upset, but can you sustain it? And I feel like now the way that Coach Stoops is developing players, everybody's like, well, Josh Allen, we're going to lose him. Josh Allen came in here at 210 pounds, and now he's 260, and he came in because no one else wanted him, and now he's going to leave as a top pick in the draft. So it's not just about getting recruits. It's about developing these young men, and that's where I think Kentucky has done a better job than everyone else in the SEC, developing young players that a lot of other people didn't want and made them better than other teams' players. And also the chemistry, bringing them together, and they also play hard. I think that's the mixture that Kentucky has that's special right now. And I think that's something that the fan base can kind of get around and rally around and kind of support as well.
Last time you were here, college game, like when you were actually playing, college game day came, the whole city.
That was 2007, right?
That team was kind of the last big
Were
team.
they at our game here?
I think so, right?
Yeah.
I think
Yes.
they were,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, 7,
Yeah.
okay.
Uh-huh.
That was
thought they were here.
That's kind of the last time the fans actually rallied around a team. They went all in on it.
They did.
What would you say is the difference between the team you played against versus what you're seeing with this one?
That's a really good question. That was a very good Kentucky football team. They had firepower offensively. They had a few very good defensive players. I mean, we're talking about a team with, several NFL players that were standouts in the NFL. A very good quarterback, and that same Kentucky team, I think it was maybe 2 weeks after we beat them, they went to LSU and beat LSU, who won the national championship. So that's a Kentucky team that week in and week out competed with the best in the country. And I think this team does that as well. I'd say this team is a little bit more run heavy, defense heavy, but I think with more of the facilities, with Stoops, someone who has been here, I don't think there's going to be the highs and the lows that they had here in 7 and 8 and 9 and in 7 that was such a competitive game where I don't know, maybe we won 45-38, something like that, and then in 8 I think we scored 70.
Yeah.
And it was where is that disconnect from 7 to 8 for that Kentucky team? And that's not going to be the case with Coach Stoops because 1, the way he coaches defense, 2, I think the way he's able to develop players, and then 3, the schemes that they run. And I think that's the difference between the Kentucky now and the Kentucky then. But don't take away from those good players though. They had some really good players. Randall Cobb, tight end, Jacob Tammy. Who was the other receiver they had? Really good.
Keenan Burton.
Yeah, Keenan Burton, but they had, short white dude, really good.
Dickie Lyon.
Yes. Dickie was hard to cover, man. Gosh.
Tim.
It was like, how can we not cover him?
Can I ask you about Mind State? You played
Of course,
on
you can ask me whatever you like.
You played on a couple of championship teams. Fans can say, I want to see it before I believe it, but football players don't have that luxury. You got to believe it before you get on the field. So speak to those championship runs you were on, how important Mind State is.
Oh gosh, it's a a really good question. I think it's an important question to ask, and I think it is true that way in football more so than other sports. Is you do have to believe it, and you have to put in the work, and then one day you're going to see it. And I think that's something that just from understanding their weight program with Coach Hill and understanding what they've been on and seeing the development of these players as they have put in so much of the work. But I got to be honest, I think part of it too is a little bit of their swagger / arrogance and belief, and I think a piece of that chip comes from Benny Snell.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good thing. Is there's different ways of having that confidence. Some players are more of an inner confidence. I'm going to lead by example. Some players are going to be a little bit more boisterous. Some players are going to, but I think the mix that Kentucky has worked, and I think a lot of that kind of comes from Benny, Josh. A lot of the other players are more quiet, but Benny's kind of the vocal point, and he's not afraid to call people out. He's not afraid to rile a team up, say what other people won't say, and I think feed off of that. And we had a little bit of that as well, where we had that inner confidence. Probably didn't say it as much, but behind doors, we said it. We didn't shy away from that. We broke it down to best ever. Like we wanted to believe we had high goals, high expectations, and we were going to go reach them.
Definitely.
And so, a lot of coaches will say, "We'll just talk about the SEC and one day talk about national." No, we were like, if we're putting this work, we're putting it for the national championship.
Exactly.
And it was a mindset
Exactly.
of where we want to get to, and I think that Kentucky has raised their mindset of just trying to compete to win.
Tim, you've won your fair share of SEC East titles. What will it take Kentucky, in your mind, tomorrow to put them over the hump and set them
Follow the plan to win. I think Kentucky is a really good team. When they follow their plan to win, I think they drop dramatically when they get outside of their comfort zone of what they do well. They run the ball, they play physical. When you don't turn it over, they stop the run, and then when they get ahead, they get after the passer. That's what Kentucky does really well. We've seen it already. We saw it against A&M. We saw it last week against Missouri when Kentucky falls behind. They're not able to necessarily catch up easily. And yes, they found a way to win last week, but those calls could have gone either way. The touchdown could have gone either way. The pass interference before that. And so you can't depend on that week in and week out. You were fortunate, but honestly, a lot of championship teams, they get fortunate once or twice in a season. I mean, Alabama didn't win the SEC last year and they won the national championship. They were fortunate, and that happens a lot. And sometimes the championship team, there's just those one or two games where you need, oh man, we got that one break. All right, we're still alive. And then you take advantage of it. And I think for Kentucky, you have to stick to your game plan and use it. But I think also to beat a team like Georgia, I think you got to find a way to take pressure off the offensive line at Benny Snell, and I think that comes from Terry's legs. I think he has to find a way to have 3 or 4 dynamic plays with his legs, and I would get him going early. I would have QB draws, I would have keepers, I would have something to get his confidence up. And hopefully for Kentucky fans, it's high after the last pass he made against Missouri, because you're gonna need Benny in the offensive line and the defense, but you're going to need a bit of a passing game, and you're going to need to take pressure at some point in the game off of the running game.
Guys, we got to get him to find